like the precipitating factor is the Industrial Revolution. When did it start? The answer is here, right? Arguably, it started somewhere in Europe, most likely in England. You could place it in England, but Northern Europe more generally. What happened in Northern Europe? What was Europe like before the Industrial Revolution? Who had the power in Europe? Which were the most powerful countries in Europe before the Industrial Revolution? Yes?
England, France, Spain.
Spain, right? So, well, before England and France. So England and France, the rise of that was the Industrial Revolution. Yeah. Okay, France was somewhat powerful then, but really before that, the most powerful were Spain and Portugal, because they had the empire, South America. They discovered South America before England colonized the U.S., right? So the first countries to, and they brought back gold, and with that gold, they were the biggest kid on the block, right? They had, Charles V of Spain was the most powerful king, emperor in the world. They had an empire where the sun never set, right? So not just South America, but also all over Africa and Asia. So they were very powerful. Spain and Portugal were the most powerful countries, and then somehow the shifts of power moved north to France, but mainly then England and Northern Europe. And that's kind of related to the Industrial Revolution. What happened in Spain at the time of the empire was the social phenomenon of the hidalgos, the small nobles. The idea was if you were a noble, you should not work. Like it was beneath you to work, and anybody who would work was kind of uncool. If you were a cool hidalgo, you didn't work. You had gold, and you let other people work for you. That's kind of what happens. That's the story of every empire. You get rich, and then you get lazy, and other people start doing the work for you, and eventually you lose your power to that other country or part of the world. That's what's happening in the U.S. where the power shifts into Asia, right? China and Southeast Asia. In Europe, it switched to sort of like switched from Southern Europe to Northern Europe, and et cetera, et cetera. Right? That's always the story, of the world. So, but in this particular thing, what happened, the Industrial Revolution, what was it about? So Adam Smith, considered the founder of economics, right, documented that. He was there observing what was happening, and he noticed, England is richer now than Spain and Portugal. It wasn't so a few years ago. What happened? He sort of documented the Industrial Revolution and modern economics, his theory of economics. So his main treatise of the origin of the wealth of nations, why are some nations more richer than others, was exploring, trying to understand the Industrial Revolution. And so what happens with this? So do you have a slide on this? Yeah. Let me stay on this slide. On the one hand, you had advances in science, in physics, chemistry, and all of those hard sciences, which then were applied through engineering and technology to sort of solve practical problems and to improve the work that was done by hand. And so a great example is what happened in Northern Europe and England was the advent of the textile mill. So textile, we don't think of it as the same way that we forget that agriculture is like a big invention. We forget that our clothes, at some point were very expensive, and cloth was very expensive. So it was all done by hand. You had people weaving just cloth by hand. Fabrics were very expensive. We didn't have ready-made clothing for the longest time. That's a very recent advent. So people had one tunic of cloth. You would just buy some cloth, one piece of cloth, and have a tunic made that you would wear every day. And that would get, you would fix it and mend it all the time. Because it was all done by hand. So the textile mill was simply applying a machine that would mechanize the hand weaving, and that was a huge advance in technology. So textile mills started producing a lot of textile in Northern Europe, selling it to Southern Europeans. Spanish and Portuguese in particular had a lot of gold, And then more and more technology appeared, culminating in the advent of the railroad. The sort of steam power. So applying energy other than human muscles to jobs that were hard to do physically. Right? That's kind of at the heart of the Industrial Revolution.